wonderful PSU students say their names and a little quick hello. Alex, why don't you lead us off? Alex Berg, excuse me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm Alex Berg. Thank you so much for talking with me yesterday, and thank you so much for being here today. And yeah, this should be fun.
Alex Ibarra.
And you're an undergraduate getting your bachelor's in conflict resolution?
In history.
History,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let me know what your major is, please.
So Alex Ibarra, yeah, go ahead.
I'm Alex Ibarra. I'm a grad student in history. Thank you for being here. It's going to be really interesting.
Grad student, great.
Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm also a grad student in public history, and this is my little grad assistant, Louisa.
Hey, dual tasking. Good for you.
How about Jake?
My name is Jake Hutchins. I'm also a graduate student in history and looking forward to this interview.
Okay.
Una?
Hi, I'm Una Fisher-Campbell. I'm a grad student in history as well.
Okay.
Cleophas?
Hi, Cleophas Chambliss. I'm a undergrad in the conflict resolutions and peace studies. I'm also the artist in residence for the conflict resolution department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lady J?
Hi, I'm Lady J. I too have a assistant who's doing school. I am a grad student for communications, and I concentrate on conflict resolution.
Wow, that's got to be interesting. Communication, man, that's life, isn't it?
Yes, and I think that conflict resolution can be reframed as the technology of communicating towards peace. So I'm trying to work in that area, create some connections.
I always used to tell my staff and so forth in business and beyond, if things are going well, it's probably because of good communication. If they're going poorly, it's probably the opposite. So I like that. I'm going to take that with me. Communication. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you say? Conflict resolution. Conflict communication.
Conflict resolution is communication technology towards peace.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
I like that.
I came up with it, so I appreciate it.
Al, that's why we hired her back in CR to manage our social media.
Oh, that's right.
Okay,
Hey, I've got a volunteer job for you when you're looking for some volunteer time.
Fantastic.
Good to know. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everyone. We're gonna be a respectful studio audience and turn things over to Alex Berg and Mr. Al Jubitz. Thank you.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And just to kind of officially start this interview, for the record, my name is Alex Berg. I'm an undergraduate history student at Portland State University, and I'm interviewing Al Jubitz for this project of ours for the creation of an exhibit on conflict resolution. So thank you, Al, for being here. And just to start us off, can you describe your own history in regards to how you first got involved in conflict resolution work?
All right. I'll keep this really short. And as I was telling Alex yesterday, age 12, Disneyland, the bridge toward Fantasyland. I gave another group of boys in nonverbal sign that you've all seen before. And I realized when he punched me in the chin that maybe that signal wasn't so good to start with. And number two, he was bigger than I was not going to be a fighter. One of my buddies came to my rescue. So I learned early on that I would get along better in life if I did not incite people toward violence or be violent myself. long story short, married at age 22 and first of 3 children at age 25 to 30, in that range. Started out in banking very briefly in Harvard Square, and then back to Portland for the family business, 34-year career. I was telling Alex, at age 33, I had 2 invitations. One by my wife, as I came home from work, saying, we're going to a meeting tonight. And I said, oh, we are? And she said, yes. And I said, what's it about? And she said, you'll find out. And it was about communications. Was it Stephanie that was the communications person? She went, hey, turn your cameras on. So I started a process of values training, extended over 6 years and morphed into the Beyond War movement, where I learned about care of the planet, care of relationships, care, and the whole arms race, which peaked in 1984. This was from 77 to about 83. We were very, very active in this peer-led group that came out of Stanford. The same year, 77, age 33, I got invited to join the downtown Portland Rotary Club. And it took many years to figure out the expanse and depth and breadth of the Rotary peace movement. And still evolving, and it's still, I think, one of the keys to a more peaceful world, because Rotarians are typically or civil society people that care about what's happening in your community. They're business and professionals and leaders, and they want to get things better, and they're action oriented. So these 2 things, use education, spanning 6 major years in my 30s, and Rotary International, which gave me a much broader worldview, were key to later in life, post-career and post-Cold War, that I noticed that Rotary started educating a cadre of about students a year, fully paid scholarships in peace studies, conflict resolution. So this was a major commitment, started in 2002, so it's almost 20 years. And it's symbolic of Rotary's heart and their action. So right now we have over 1,500 to 1,800 Rotary Peace Fellows around the world with master's degrees or certificates if they're mid-career professionals certificate program, teaching basic concepts of conflict resolution. Very, very important education, what you're doing. Now, a lot of you are history students, and the history books are full of wars and not very full of peace builders. But today, the term peace builder is very common, but not in the dictionaries. So my foundation is trying to get it in the dictionaries. By the way, it's 1 word, not 2. So working to get it in the dictionaries. But if you consider yourself a peace builder, you will have a very happy life, okay? Because you practice what you've learned, which is communication and listening and a kind heart. So I've had that, fortunately. Mainly I approach it intellectually. I did not go to war in Vietnam. I was a hawk going into the late 60s and a dove coming out of the 70s because of my knowledge changed. And I listened to the anti-war protesters, which I read today, and where was I reading? Something came across my desk today about PSU was the most active campus in the country on the anti-Vietnam War movement. That was cool. Well, I was back in Portland in 1969 and right during that period of time. So maybe some PSU know-how rubbed off on me. But that in a nutshell is where now today I have a family foundation because I was in business, and its mission is peace and the environment. And we're trying to merge those 2 concepts instead of siloing them, trying to merge those 2 concepts into a movement, which I think is intuitive, but structurally separate, a lot of people's minds. The movement is, if you really care about the future, you got to care about your environment, your Mother Earth, and you've got to care about not, because if you start killing people, you probably get killed right back. So All this is merging together, and the War Prevention Initiative, which is a project of my foundation, the Family Foundation, his goal is to prevent all war by 2030. Okay, I'm going to repeat, I'm going to look at your eyes. Okay, look at the camera. Prevent all war by 2030. Let's see. Hey, I got a thumbs up from Cleophas. Others, I think Stephanie's on board. Alex, you might be on board, but Jake, you might be skeptical. Say good luck, right? Well, that's the male's perspective. Yeah, we fight, right? Well, we got to learn not to fight because none of us will survive if we continue fighting. But typically, 1/3 of the people say, wow, you're crazy. People ward forever. It's in our nature. A third will say, well, gee, that's interesting. Tell me more. And a third will say, how can I help? And the good news is, before I established this goal a decade ago, the trends were in our favor. The trends are very definitely in our favor, that people are becoming less violent toward each other, and yet we still invest in weapons of mass destruction, i.e. nuclear weapons and others that are antithetical to everything we care about. So we need female voices. This is the guy's world you're inheriting. And the women have got to stand up and say, can we think about this or talk about this or frame this in a different way? Because these weapons are antithetical to children, grandchildren, all that. You know, it's really, really important that you help the communication on nuclear weapons. I have no open mind, and I'm a very curious guy on nuclear weapons that slams shut. I have no open minds about their value. They're an accident waiting to happen. And we grew up under the cloud, and yes, we're 70% fewer weapons, but still, what, 100 times more than we need for nuclear winter, and so it's still dangerous. Need your help there. Okay, next, does that give you a sort of a, oh, the other nonprofit is a Rotarian Action Group for Peace, which is taking peace science, which comes right out of Portland State and other institutions, and it's a very growing discipline. When Rotary set up its peace scholarships, there were 40 institutions giving degrees in conflict resolution. That was in the early 80s. Today, there are 10 times that number giving degrees. So you're in a very popular field if you're a history student or a conflict resolution student. And I applaud you for that choice. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, long answer.
No, it's good. We like long answers.
Right, oh, yeah. Okay, Alex, go ahead. Next. You got, anyone can ask a question. Yeah.
Well, so yesterday you mentioned that you've known Rob Gold for a while and that he's kind of central to PSU's own conflict resolution program. Can you tell the story about how you met him?
I'm going to have to consult with Rob to see what he remembers, but it's approaching 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think it was the early 70s. Maybe it was one of those anti-war demonstrations. Maybe it was because he co-founded the Oregon Peace Institute. Mm-hmm. And I was on the board there, and I think maybe board chair for a couple of years, but and he and Elizabeth Furs. How many of you know Elizabeth? She should come and talk to your class and interview her next. She actually went to Congress, and her major accomplishment in 6 years was to reduce the military budget airplane. So she got disenchanted with Congress. But at any rate, and she tells that story. I'm not picking on her. She leads with that story. So she, anyway, but she and Rob attracted me somehow, and my nature was to go in that direction. And I got involved there. I met other people, other peace builders and makers. John McDonald being one of the significant ones, and he coined the multi-track diplomacy field of study, and just recently died. John Whiteneck was another local peace builder, very important person, a pastor in his career. But it just makes sense. It's not rocket science to get people to follow peace. In fact, human beings are mostly peaceful. I mean, they're naturally peaceful. if they were naturally violent, we wouldn't be here. You know, we'd all be dead. So it's but we've grown up thinking that we're violent. And yes, while some of us have violent tendencies, and we can be violent individually or collectively, the steady state is that of peace. And so so my challenge is to counter militarism and the budgets that go with it when school teachers are starving. And now with COVID, institutions like PSU are starving, cities and counties are starving, everybody's starving, but we still invest in military hardware in the mistaken, in my opinion, belief that that makes us safer.
You mentioned that you were drawn to their work. What exactly about their work was it that drew you, that kind of caught your attention?
Well, I have a natural tendency to listen to people of higher education, professors. In fact, when the development people would come at me for some projects, I'd say, I want to talk to the professors. They're the ones that are A, teaching the students, and B, are probably very knowledgeable in their field. So I would somehow come in contact with people like Rob Gould and Jane Gordon and others down at University of Oregon, and also Harry Anastasio, who I have a lot of respect for. And these people that teach, it's the highest profession, teaching. It really is the highest profession. Thank you, Patricia. And because they want to deliver knowledge to the next generation. And that knowledge is how you should take into account when you make decisions in life. So I've always been attracted to knowledge. Might be my curiosity side or my intellectual side, but I've attracted to knowledge. And being a middle kid and getting hit in the chin at age 12, I decided that learning more about peace might counteract my big mouth, which would get me in trouble because I was a wise guy. I was kind of in school, I get disciplined because I try to be funny and try to attract the girls, so I would be kind of a guy that wasn't very disciplined at what he said. So I was just attracted to the whole idea of conflict resolution. I have been ever since. Now my office is publishing the Peace Science Digest, which we're in our 5th year, and we take academic, peer-reviewed academic research and condense it so guys can understand it, And so we have a great appreciation for higher education and the discipline of conflict resolution, which has blossomed. I'm taking right now called conflict transformation. Well, I've heard the term a lot in the office and beyond, but I wasn't too schooled in it, so I'm not that. So the discipline of conflict resolution, conflict management, there's another one, transformation, is nuances, but all very, very important. The emotional impact of conflict. To understand we're human beings, which means we're emotional, and that anyone can set us off if we're not thinking. And it's very, very important to reduce domestic violence, to understand emotions, both female and male emotions, but how they play into resolving conflict is a whole nother element of this study. So anyway, it's a cool field. It really is. I mean, you don't hear too many people say, ooh, that's a bad idea. Like if you want to be an artist, that doesn't pay. Well, conflict resolution, you hear that also, but basically you can go into any environment and apply the skills you're now learning to business, your church, your social contacts, your family, your Rotary Club, wherever there are people, there'll be conflict, and you can. It's really, really important. I just can't emphasize enough that women in meetings, I'm committed not to speak on a panel that's not gender balanced. So if they ask me, I'll say who else is on the panel. If there's three men and me, I say sorry, I can't do. but we must hear the women's voices. And women, the challenge for you is to be heard, which generally happens at the end of meetings, I've noticed. Men are arguing, dominating the conversation. A woman might say something really important at the end, but people are tired, they want to go, so they don't listen too well. So somehow use what your natural ability, please speak up, because you have a different way of framing issues and thinking out of the box. So I don't know, these are broad generalizations, but I'm very, very happy to see on the screen only one other male, Jake. Yeah. So Jake,
So
we're really better at doing what women say than them doing what we say. Have you come to that conclusion in your young life? Not yet? Huh? Come on, Jake. Unmute yourself. I want to hear.
Well, I'm wondering what my wife would say based on my response right next to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a pass.
Oh, well, I've been married 53 years, and it took a while, I will admit, to realize it's much better if she's in charge. You know, good luck with it, Jake.
Oh yeah, I already figured that out.
Oh, good. Well, I was a slow learner, so. Okay, next, Alex, what do you have next?
well, so you've already kind of talked about the Rotary Action Groups and your involvement therein, and these are groups that kind of have a goal of, or a practice, so to speak, of waging peace. And you've mentioned your personal goal of preventing war by 2030. So I was just wondering, maybe you could talk a little bit more in depth about that, and also a little how it aligns with PSU's own peace work and activism.
Yeah. When you think about leadership in the world, leadership for good, okay, there's always criminal elements and bad actor dictators and so forth, but when you think of who do we look to lead us to nirvana, who do you think? Are there any? Well, some people say the United Nations. Yeah, the UN does some really good work. That is true, but they are a organization of governments. You say, well, my government, they know the right answers and the path toward nirvana. You say, well, which government? The one that's currently in office, or the one last, or the next? They only last for a short period of time. You say, well, what about the religions? What about the Pope? Or great peace builders like Martin Luther King, or Gandhi, or the Dalai Lama? And you say, yeah, they're great, but they're all tied to a religion, and so people don't hear them. So who do we look to for leadership? My answer was Rotary International. Now, the International Red Cross, Red Crescent movement is another non-political, non-religious organization. It's the largest humanitarian organization on the planet, and they carry weight. So does Rotary International. In Rotary, it's the typical Rotary Club, average Rotary Club is 40 members. Now that's growing with online because people is more convenient to meet. I was just on a Beaverton Club. My stepbrother was talking as a speaker and about COVID and stuff. He's a doc. So 65 people were meeting on Zoom just the hour before here. But Rotarians are engaged in the community. They have a world perspective, so it's think globally and act locally. It's a bottoms-up autonomous organization, service. They're called service organizations, service to others. And the projects or whatever the Rotary Club members want the projects to be. And for those projects, district level, which is like half of Oregon, our district, and the zone level and the international level, so matching funds all the way along. But it's allowing people, international projects are paired with Rotary clubs in another country, where you send typically rich countries like the United States to poor countries, wherever. The money flows to Rotarians, and that is an anti-corruption methodology. In other words, don't give it to governments because there's bribery all over the place. You give it to Rotarians, they'll see that it goes for its intended purpose. Now, that is driven by our four-way test, which is simply 20, I think, 6 words. Is it the truth? Things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? That's another test. And is it beneficial to all concerned? So when you're negotiating with a vendor, let's say, and you're big and they're small, how do you treat them? And by the way, I have many regrets in my business life for treating small vendors unfairly. You know, yes, they served us, but I drove too hard. So anyway, those principles and values are very important to Rotary. There's no secret handshake. There's no religion, no politics, but there's a lot of humanitarianism in the whole Rotary movement. So with 35,000 Rotary clubs around the world, more countries and territories than the United Nations, I might add, but we're not everywhere, like North Korea. I don't think we're there. With that many Rotary clubs, there's a lot of people close to societies wherever on the planet. In other words, these Rotarians are 1 degree, most 2 degrees away from the power structure, the political power structure, or the knowledge base at universities. So if you're moving to a city, join a Rotary Club. Soon you will know what's what in your new town. That's what I suggest people to do, is always join a Rotary Club and you find out who's who really fast. And you'll enjoy it in doing projects locally and internationally. So I do believe that Rotary International is one avenue to world peace. In fact, they say themselves, the superstructure, say themselves that Rotary hold that space, preeminent NGO focused on. The trouble is they don't market it, so we need communications department to say we're the world's most preeminent peace organization without upsetting people that define peace as political, you know. So we have our challenges, but we're trying to take peace science and express it through these Rotary clubs. One measure is what we call peace builder clubs. There are now 200 clubs. It's on our website, a peace map. You'll see where the peace builder clubs are. And these clubs are saying, we want to join the Peace Builder Club network. And so they sign up with the Action Group for Peace. And now they feel they're part of a larger network within Rotary on the topic of peace. This is all very new, but it's a good measure, and they're loving it because they're getting new members because there's a committee for peace. So I'm very encouraged by the next 10 years as we roll down our attractiveness toward war and preparing for war. We still have 10 years to go to get to my ultimate goal. So yeah, okay, does that help? I don't know. I get off on these tangents.
With your understanding of how PSU's conflict resolution program functions, do you see it as aligned with the work that you just described?
Well, if you have a fertile mind and you tend toward follow the knowledge, I mean, people are always trying to struggle with what's myth and what's fact. And if you believe the people in universities are A, educated, B, of good spirit, meaning they're educating others. Not that science doesn't change and new knowledge doesn't come in, but yeah, I think they're core. That's the greatness of America, by the way, is our educational system. It's not our healthcare system. Yeah, I mean, we think it is, but it's not. Other countries, but people still come from abroad to go to our universities, PSU being one of them. There, by the way, there's a great 4-minute video I could send you from educator from the East Coast. He was at Notre Dame at the time, but in 2014, he came to Portland State as our guest and spoke to a after work gathering on his work in Sri Lanka and other places, and how early detection of conflict can be the path toward prevention of violence. And we buttonholed right on the third floor of one of these big PSU buildings and said, you know, you seem to know a lot about Rotary. We're going to set the camera up and would you say something? So he stood right in front of the PSU backdrop, and we have a 4-minute video of him saying about how unique Rotary is, both horizontal connection to society and vertical connection to power, and how Rotarians are just individuals, you know, but collectively we can make things happen. So I have chosen to devote most of my time in that direction to try to encourage Rotarians, which many are hawks, you know, many just haven't thought it through. But many are retired or Peace Corps veterans also. So you got the spectrum because the society has a spectrum. Anyway, so yeah, PSUs. Yeah. That was very cool because Joe Bach is his name. And by the way, Patricia, he would be happy to do one of these interviews for your class. Very smart guy, very articulate, has been to Portland State. And I can send you the link if you're interested.
So you've mentioned kind of seeing an application for conflict resolution, both in domestic situations as well as international conflict situations. And some practitioners see it as a practice to transform conflict, to use it, to harness that energy and use it productively, while others see it more as a chance to end conflict, to get rid of conflict. Do you have any words one way or another, or how do you see those fitting together?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Here's my note. See that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Conflict transfer. So I know the conflict is the elixir to make a good meal, to change the situation. It's not to be feared. It's going to be there, whether it's your cat, your dog, your mother, your father. You're going to have conflict. So don't reject conflict, but take conflict as an opportunity to improve relationships. I love it when the 10-year-old tells his arguing parents in the kitchen, they're having a fight, and the 10-year-old comes in the kitchen and says, Mom, Dad, do you mind coming into the den and sitting down and let's discuss this? You know, I mean, imagine that. Isn't that cool? Well, that kid gets some conflict resolution course at school. And that's my point. You guys are learning, and just apply what you learn and practice it. You got to practice it. And so when 10-year-olds ask the parents to sit down and just the issue with him or her sitting there, I think that's classic case of teaching parents through their kids. All right. Okay. I like that image. I wish I had that knowledge at age 10. Yeah. Let's go around the room. Stephanie, I'll pick on you first. What's on your mind?
I'm going to let Alex
maybe
finish.
just a little follow-up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Thank you. I think this is the perfect time for follow-up.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions. Thank you for everything that you said.
Yeah, I mean, I know the department changed over the years with leaderships. We finally got an undergraduate degree. I hope that's still there. I haven't been that close to it in the last 3 or 4 years, but you know, basically you're teaching conflict resolution and from history, a historical perspective, as well as current knowledge. And I think that's key. I would be very disappointed if during the cutback phase, which undoubtedly we're going into, that the CR gets, I hope they don't get the axe. It's a very critical life skill that you're learning.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too.
Any other follow-up? I mean, I have a reserve question, but I want to give the students present a chance to ask a question.
I have one question.
Thank you, Susan.
About people at the, the people at the table. We're getting everybody together, but not just women, but there should be people of color on that panel as well. And
Absolutely.
Men and women, just to get the true value of the population and the concern.
I learned in my course, I'm in week 2 out of 5, so I'm early in the course, but I learned that to transform conflict, you really need to represent all sectors of society. And that I don't mean just professionally, but gender, race, anyone that is impacted by this systemic violence that we unfortunately have in many systems. If it's post-colonial, you've probably got some systemic violence going on.
What do you think about the images of, like, for example, in Michigan, of these men coming in with guns and trying to intimidate the governor? And you don't hear any peace. But it's really, to me, it's alarming.
It is, and it's a symbol of, in my opinion, it's like a store last week. I was finding myself getting very agitated because these people younger than this risk category were coming in close, 2 or 3 or 4 as a group coming in aisles with no mask. That's a symbol. That is becoming a symbol of what's the term I'm looking for, of against authority. So the gun, they've got a right to own and carry a gun in public, but they're using it as a symbol of reopening. And it's arrogant, it's unfriendly, it's scary. I don't like it. And it's going to take a woman to talk those men down. And I'm not kidding, ladies. It's going to take a woman to get in her face and say, don't you have any manners? Go home and do what your mother wants you to do. When men are confronted, I mean, the only way to talk down that kind of image power, in my experience, has been a woman that's not afraid. It's in their face and say, go home and brush your teeth, or go home and,
I think I really appreciate
quit being such a jerk,
Mm-hmm.
because if I go up to those people, I got in a conversation with the florist on Mother's Day, and I only entered it because a woman was having the same conversation. I sort of put in my 2 cents worth, and the guy started arguing with me about the percentage of the chance of getting COVID, like 1/4 of 1%. And so what's a big deal? I said, well, the big deal is if I get it. So I'm wearing a mask. Anyway, it's very important. In Liberia, remember when the women joined and sat in front of, what was the guy's name? Taylor. And they got changed. They were unified, they were nonviolent, they were determined, and they got changed. And that is a kind of, I'm learning about peaceful or nonviolent resistance. Those are very effective techniques.
Unfortunately, I think I appreciate what you're saying, but the current administration was sort of premised on violence against women. The whole lock her up. The whole premise is white supremacy.
It's divide and
a kind of sexism where it's premised on control of women and domination of women, which is of course going to fall extra heavy on poor communities and communities of color. It's going to erase a lot of the violence there by highlighting white women. I respect what you're saying. If we have a shared moral system, we might imagine a system of deference to women, certainly. But this administration is premised on quite the opposite.
Well, it is. And my dad said always vote for when I became a voting age, my dad was, I say, who do you vote for? I said, well, always look for the person with the best character.
And we're not there right now. Well, we're coming close to the end of our, oh, Cece, you want to go ahead and follow up?
No, I was just saying thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're well. I hope that helped.
Everything that you
Yeah.
do, everything
Okay.
that you do. Thank
Oh,
you.
oh, yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for what you're doing. You got longer running runway than I do. You got the next 40, 50 years to make peace. I only have, what, 10 or 20.
Oh.
I got that 10 or 20.
Hey, Alan, just in our closing moment, you said something very suggestive. We're so lucky to do this class and do this commemoration around CR near the anniversary of PSU's upheaval against Vietnam. I think it's just a wonderful, happy accident. But you said you had a kind of shift from, you went into that war a hawk and you came out a dove. Is there a story that goes with that shift?
Yeah, I attended Yale University from 62 to 66. And towards 66, my God, 66, that's when I graduated. Well, I guess the Vietnam War was going on, wasn't it? Yeah, so we had one television in the dorm, and it was, I'd go down at 6 o'clock and watch the news, and there were these body count images. Every little symbol of a human being was like 10 dead. And US count was like 2.5, which meant 25. And the Viet Cong count for that day was, you know, like 500. So I just felt, well, this is going great. You know, we'll outlast them. You know, killing 10, 20 times more Viet Cong than they're killing us. So we'll win this thing, you know? So that was the extent of my knowledge. Then the nonviolent demonstration started, and I had to read the signs. I think signs are very important. And I saw that it was peaceful, and I saw that other people my age had different opinions. They were more educated. So my view started changing, and then 7 years later, like I'm 1970 now, 77, I had the on Creative Initiative Foundation, which morphed into Beyond War Movement. I got real training. I got real education on the arms race, on alternative to violence, militarism, on the planet and its limitations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So through an intellectual process, I had to confront my own biases going in. And this is the problem with knowledge. You hang around the university long enough, you know, you're going to maybe change your mind about some things, and that's probably a good thing. so, you know, but there's an awful lot of people who just soon stick to the mantra of what they grew up with or what their political party's telling them to say without deeper thinking. So I'm glad you're in school. I'm glad and I'm available to you. Going forward, Patricia can give you my email or my phone number. I'd be happy to, and Alex can also, but I'd be happy to talk to you. I tell young marrieds, is there a gun in the house? Let's see, who's young married here? Kona, are you young? Oh, Stephanie. Yeah, do you have a gun in your house?
Well, no.
Good. Okay. Well, some women are confronted with a male that wants that gun. I have a son-in-law. I finally talked him into putting it really in the attic and, you know, kind of disassembled, but he likes to go hunting. So these are adult conversations you should have with your future spouse if you don't have one now, because that gun is a symbol. Now I've modified my speech on guns a little bit because I know a lot of people feel that if they're a single woman living in a tough area, maybe it's protection, but I would encourage that person to go to your class, learn about how to talk her way out of trouble some other way. But because when you see news, you'll see that the gun is usually what gets people in trouble. And whether you're a redneck that's chasing down a jogger or any other thing, the gun is not a helpful thing to carry. So I have strong opinions about the symbolism of guns. These guys standing with their machine guns in front of a rally, a peaceful rally, is just a protest. I got strong adverse feelings about them. Do they have a right to do that? Unfortunately, in those states, I guess they do. But is that a good way to demonstrate to your children the way to go about having, you know, social intercourse? No. But I'm a progressive type guy, so they're never going to agree with my liberal view. So, and so the divide continues. But I will listen to them because they really are about authority, I think. Neo-Nazi authority figures bother them, and they probably don't get along with their spouses either.
Very
Anyway,
interesting
that's-
to theorize
that's
the
all.
relationship between
Theorize,
domestic power relation. I think one of the threads in your wonderful discussion is that there's a relationship between domestic power
Oh, yeah.
relations and social power relations. So
Well,
that is very rich, and you know, we can spend a long time talking about it. In fact, we may have to follow up with you more later, but
I'd be happy to. And we have a decision to make individually, and that is, how do we feel when we are in conflict? I mean, no one's comfortable. I'm not. Even at the ripe old age of 75, I'm not. I don't like conflict. But you can escalate it or you can de-escalate it. And you've got to decide. I think you have to decide, are you going to be a peaceful person? And if so, practice all that, including the symbols of the opposite, get rid of them. If you're going to be a non-smoker, be a non-smoker. You know, if you're going to be nonviolent, don't have guns hanging around because they're weapons of violence. And if you need a conversation between a spouse over that issue, there are mediators at PSU that can help you talk that through, and why with little kids in the house, it's especially dangerous. So anyway, lots to talk about, but decide you're going to go one way and give up the other way. And that may come at age 35, it may come at age 40, it may come at 25.
wow.
But make the decision, and then try to marry someone that's, how many of you are married? Show of hands. Show of hands, how many of you are married? Okay. All right. Well, those of you that aren't, you know, be thoughtful about who you marry. Yeah.
That's helpful. Well, I think we're at the end of our hour. Alex, do you want to close us officially, since this is your interview?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the follow-up questions. Thank you all for talking and giving us so much lovely information.
Well, I'm happy to help you through life. So if I can be helpful, let me know.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
We'll be in
Thanks for your
touch
time.
now.
All
Everybody,
right.
great afternoon. Guard your health. We'll
Thank
see
you. Yes, shall do. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good job.